Okay, so today we're going to talk about landlord and tenant. So today we're going to talk from the landlord's perspective for rental properties. Okay, everybody should know about rental laws because if you're selling a tenanted property, you have to know how to deal with tenant, right? And a lot of people are getting their rental license, right? So they have to know the rules about the tenants. So the first thing, as we know, for tenancy agreement, there are mostly two types. One type of tenancy is called month to month, okay? You can break the agreement once it's month to month and you just give a proper notice. And second tenancy is called fixed term tenancy. For fixed term tenancy, you cannot break the agreement. Either party cannot break the agreement unless both parties agree on a term to terminate. Otherwise, one party cannot terminate. Okay, tenant or landlord, they cannot terminate the agreement until the rental term expires. Okay. And number two, when you're dealing with rental property, there's a high possibility that the government can take over your property. There was a case happened probably a few years ago. The landlord, he used to grow marijuana in his house and he got caught. And also he has a record, right? Criminal record. And then a few years later, he bought two houses and he asked a property manager to rent for them. And then those two houses end up being grew up house too. So other people grew up marijuana inside those two houses. Not the landlord. The landlord doesn't know. The property manager doesn't know. So when they caught him growing marijuana in the house, because the landlord has a bad record, bad reputation. So the government actually took over, seized the property. So he just lost his property. House is gone. So actually the government has the power to take away your property. So 10 scenarios from tenant, it might happen during your sale or during your management. Number one, tenant doesn't pay rent. Okay, there's one situation. And number two, tenant doesn't pay the utility fees. Number three, tenant have pets without permit. Number four is without permission, they sublease or assign this property to someone else. And number five, growing marijuana in the house. Number six, they do renovation without permission. And number seven, just leave the house without a notice, and before the tenancy ends, they just run away. Okay. And number eight, if they're living in a condo, they keep breaking the bylaw, and bylaw has fines, right? The bylaw has fines and they don't pay the fines. And the landlord has to pay the fines, the strata fines. Okay. And the tenant damage the property, right? Sometimes they have a pet or they pour water on the floor and the floor all destroyed. Okay. And I've seen some tenant. I've seen some tenants are very, very dirty. When you try to sell the house or condo, everywhere dirty laundry on the floor, everywhere. There's no way you can walk. Super, super dirty. So we have those 10 scenarios that you will be dealing with when you're dealing with tenant. Either you're selling the house or you're managing the house. Those are the most common 10 scenarios, okay? So how do you vacate the tenant? How do you get them out, right? Normally, when you sell the house is sold, you can get them out. You can give them a notice to get them out. And number two is that you tell the tenant, I'm gonna move in. Or my direct family, my son or my wife, my parents are going to move in. Brother doesn't count. Okay, cousin doesn't count. So they're gonna move in, then they can leave. And number 3 is renovation or demolition. And that has to be very major renovation or demolition. Small one doesn't count. Okay, must be big ones. So there are not many ways to get them out if they're a proper tenant, right? But you have to learn how to deal with them when they're not proper tenant. So when you send a notice to a tenant, there are rules, okay? There is 4 different scenarios and different times you can send notice to the tenant. One notice is called 10-day notice. And 10-day notice after you send to the tenant, they have 5 days to dispute. And after 5 days, if they don't say anything, then this 10-day notice will be in effect. Same as other notice. 1 month notice, they have 10 days. And 2 months notice, they have 15 days. And there's 4 months notice, they have 30 days. Okay? So you have to be careful the notice. If they're months notice, they must be full calendar months, which means if today is October 9th, right? If you send a 2 months notice, when is that? November and December. They can leave end of December. That's 2 full calendar months, okay? So how do you calculate and how do you know the proper ways of serving the notice? Number 1 is to serve the notice in person. So if I give you the notice in person, then it'll be considered starting from that day. If I give you a 10-day notice in person, then it counts from that day, 10 days, okay? But you better take a photo or video camera or something, keep evidence. Because he may in court say, I never met him on that day, right? So you can use a camera, take some evidence. You must have evidence or witness. Have someone go with you as a witness, a co-worker, someone. Number 2 is to mail or register mail. So if it's by mail or registered mail, it's considered 5 days. If they don't say anything after 5 days, they would say it's received, considered received. But you have to have the receipt. You have to have the receipt from Canada Post, right? Don't just throw your mail into the mailbox, right? Go to Canada Post, get a receipt. That's evidence, okay? And number 3 is to post it on the door or somewhere obvious. They must see, right? They cannot miss. Post on the door, then it's 3 days after you're posting on the door. And number 4 is to give to someone who lives in the house, maybe not the tenant, maybe the tenant's roommate or parents or a son, someone's adult. Then it's considered the same day, okay? Or you can leave it in the mailbox. In their mailbox, then it's 3 days after. If they don't say anything, it's considered received. Mailbox. And number 6 is the fax number that they provided to you. You can fax to them, and after 3 days, it's considered received. And then number 7, RTB refers to the residential tenancy branch. Okay, that's the department where they govern the rules, regulations, and arbitrations. So sometimes they will tell you how to deliver and how long it'll be in effect. So if you slide under the door, it doesn't count. So you cannot slide under the door. I don't know why. It's probably safer than posting on the door, right? Somebody could took it. At least you're sliding inside the door. I don't know why, but they're saying it doesn't count. So you cannot slide the letter under the door. Or you cannot email or text message. So email and text message also doesn't count. It's 21st century. I don't know why, but this is kind of awkward. Sliding under the door, email and text message doesn't count. That's just ridiculous. Anyways, so you have to have evidence or witness when you're doing the serving notice part. So in future, there's no argument, okay? It's about 10 days notice. So for 10 days notice, if they do not pay rent before 5th or within 5 days from the rent is due, you can serve a 10-day notice. Or if they don't pay the utilities, you can serve a 10-day notice. For example, if they're supposed to pay on 1st of October for rent, and then on the 5th, they still don't have the rent for you, then on the 6th, you can serve a 10-day notice for them to get out. Okay? A 1 month notice. There's more category in here. So if they do not pay the damage deposit or pet deposit within 30 days from signing the agreement, you can send them a 1 month notice to get out. But mostly, I would ask you to collect deposit before they move in. Otherwise, do not give them the key, right? If they don't pay the deposit, they do not give you the rent checks, do not give them the key. After they move in, it's very difficult to move them out. Number 2, if they're late payment for 3 times, consistently, right? If they always late for payment, you can send them a 1 month notice. And number 3 is they violate the agreement term, right? They do not follow the terms and rules in your agreement. You can send them a 1 month notice. And also, when you're selling the house or trying to rent a house to someone else, right? When you're doing showing, sometimes they're home, they're lying to those people. They say, do you like the house? Is there a problem? I'm gonna buy it. And then if you lie to me, and if the landlord finds out, I can kick you out because you're destroying my opportunity to sell the house, right? Assignment or subletting without the permit from the landlord, without permission. I do not allow my house to be used as short-term rental or other people to live in other than you and your family, right? If you do that, if I find out, I can give you a 1 month notice to move out. And also, 30 days do not obeying the RTB's decision. So if there is a decision made, then you have to follow the decision. Either you pay the money owing or you have to do this, do that. If they don't do it, then you can kick them out by 1 month notice. And also, number 7, too many people live in the house. Unreasonable number of people live in the house. Normally in my agreement, I would say how many adults are allowed to live in the property that I own or I manage. I would say that in my agreement. So if anything over that, I can send them a 1 month notice. Okay. You can also send them 1 month notice if they have damaged the property or putting the property in great risk of being damaged. You can also send them a notice. And also, they damage the property and then they refuse to fix it. If they don't fix it and they damage the property, you can send them 1 month notice. And if they cause a risk for other people, like other roommate or sometimes the basement and the above mean property, right? If they cause a safety issue, health issue, or user right issue, they could also be kicked out. And also they're affecting other people's lifestyle. And also if they're doing illegal activities, any illegal activity, they can be kicked out, okay? And also same thing, if the illegal activity is affecting other people's safety, health, and other users' right, you can send them 1 month notice. For 2 months notice, so the reason you can send a 2 months notice is when you sold the house or when you want to move in, okay? So when you want to move in, it's either your wife, your son, your parents want to move in, then you can send them a 2-month notice for them to move out. Or if you sold the house, the buyer or their family, the buyer or buyer's family, they're moving in, then you can send a 2-month notice. For 4 months notice, if you're tearing down the building, it's an old house, you're trying to build a new house, you have to give them a 4-month notice. And before you get a demolition permit, you cannot serve this 4-month notice. You have to have demolition permit, and then you send the 4-month notice. Otherwise, your landlord could be sued. Okay? And also, major renovation. Major renovation, if you change a kitchen cabinet, it's not major. If you change floor, it's not major. Change bathroom, not major. You have to be tearing walls, rewiring piping, rewiring electrical. Those are called major. Okay? So the rule is they have to have everybody moved out in order to do this renovation. It's called major, the whole thing. Okay? During renovation, they cannot live in it. It's not safe for health or no safety. Okay, so if the landlord violates these rules, okay, so for example, you serve the notice and you're saying, I'm gonna move in, and the landlord does not move in for more than 6 months, the tenant could go to RTB and complain, and the landlord has to pay the tenant a year rent, 12 months rent in penalty. Okay, that's a lot of money. And for example, if you're saying, I'm gonna tear down the building, okay, and later on you don't tear down the building, they can go to RTB and sue you for 12 months rent. And if you are doing renovation, like say major renovation, but you actually did a little bit renovation, the tenant are supposed to move back with the same rent rate. And if you don't do that, they can also go to RTB and sue you for 12 months rent. So be careful. This penalty is very big. So after you get that serves notice, right? And then if they do not move out, or they decided to move out, it's okay. If they do not move out, then you have to go to RDB to apply for what they call a order of possession. Then you have to get the order of possession to the tenant for them to move out. For example, they dispute, right? They don't want to move out, they have dispute. And then the RTB will host a hearing for both parties to come in and talk about the things. And then they will make a decision, who's right, who's wrong, and if the party has to follow the direction of RTB. If the landlord wins, they give you an order of possession for you to move out the tenant. Okay, so if they receive order of possession and they still don't move out, then you have to find legal ways, like they will have police come in and move them. Okay, so this is a very long process. So when you pick your tenant, you have to screen your tenant very carefully. After you get the tenant in, you better have a better, good relationship between you and the tenant. Otherwise, when you want to sell the house, probably they're not gonna help you coordinate, show the house or clean up the house, right? So you're gonna end up in a difficult situation. So you have to know and learn how to deal with tenants.